Hi friends, and welcome. On today's adventure, I'm going to try to answer the question. You know, the one that says, should you just hunt deer in the early season, or should you take a few days and maybe chase a wild turkey? Well, if you're a frequent flyer, you already know the answer, at least for me. You see, when the leaves start to brighten up, when the morning air gets that first little bit of snap into it, I just gotta take up my stick and string and head to the outdoor grocery store, try to put some fast food in the Randall family freezer, as it were. And this year is gonna be no exception. Now, if you know me, you know that I adore deer hunting above everything else, especially whitetail hunting with my archery gear. But a close second is chasing anything that I can interact with, anything that'll talk back to me. And wild turkey is certainly near the top of my menu when I go shopping. Thunder chicken on a stick, as I call it, is an exciting and special thing to do in the early fall, and this year is going to be no exception. We have a family tradition. If you're that frequent flyer, you know that for 18 years in a row, we have managed to put wild turkey on our traditional family Thanksgiving table, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that tradition stays alive. Hey, I'm your host, Kyle Randall. This is my Wilderness Journal, and we're going out trying to keep a tradition going right now. My setup for fall turkey hunting is pretty much like my spring setup. I generally use a jake and a hen. I almost always set up at the edge of a food plot or open field, fairly close but not right under a roost. And then you wait for daylight, do a little calling, and hopefully them crows are after something. Got an owl or something going. And not long after first light, something came to my calls. But that something was deer. That's the way it is. You turkey hunting and you see deer. You go deer hunting, all you see is turkeys. Figures. You go turkey hunting, of course you're going to see deer. You go deer hunting, what you see? A little buck worked his way through, and then I noticed even more deer following him along. There was another small buck. They all seemed more than a little interested in my calls and my decoys, but none of them was running right out in front of me. I watched quietly as one small buck and most of the does went south. The other little buck headed north out toward the far edge of the food plot. This was pretty good entertainment. I had a deer tag in my pocket, and you never know. These youngsters certainly weren't shooters yet, but a bigger deer might show up at any second. I will admit I was some concerned. I hadn't heard a single peep out of a turkey, and I was beginning to worry there might not be any birds on the roost I had set up near. Still, this kind of morning, this kind of view, well, that's pretty tough to beat on an early fall morning. At least for me. You know, we've been pretty lucky, pretty fortunate, blessed, you might say. I'd say. The Randalls, E-Tux, and E-Tal have had wild turkey for Thanksgiving dinner for I don't know how many years in a row now, but it's been a long time, and we've been really fortunate. And it isn't always just me. And we've had the kids out, and they get turkeys, the grandkids, our friends. Turkey hunting is one of those things that, quite frankly, if I couldn't deer hunt, this is what I do most of the time. This and elk hunting, anything that'll talk back to you. It was about then I noticed another buck. This one maybe a little bigger, but certainly no older, came working out. I still hadn't heard or seen any turkeys, but I have to confess my mind shifted to deer hunting pretty quick. I'm fully aware that in the early fall, like Tom's, bucks tend to travel in bachelor groups, and if these guys kept working their way out into the food plot, who knows? Something a whole lot bigger and a little more interesting might be following them. And as it turned out, there was something bigger following them. A little bigger. There was a 2.5-year-old buck, just a little better, working his way out with a couple of other deer. There still weren't any shooters, but they were headed in the right direction. They bobbed their heads and stared and sniffed and then circled my decoys. They certainly didn't spook, but they weren't comfortable enough to come walking right out in front of me either. In fact, once the first small buck started to circle to my left, the other two worked their way out into the edge of the field and started circling with him. It was about then I heard my first gobble. Somewhere out in the trees that Tom had gobbled at some crows. I still hadn't seen any turkeys, but I wasn't short on entertainment either. Those deer didn't seem all that impressed with my calling and turkey decoys. They were curious, but not curious enough to come into bow range, and it really wouldn't have mattered. None of them looked to be a mature animal. I wasn't interested in harvesting any of them, even if I had the chance. Now, that's not to say I had a big old buck or a big mature doe wandered right up in front of me. I wouldn't have taken a run at it. I had a tag for those in my pocket, but this was supposed to be a turkey hunt. I was just going to sit there, keep calling, and hopefully, dinner would be delivered. I could occasionally hear him talking back to me. He was obviously on the ground. I kept looking and looking, and then finally,
see it's got a red head. It's a Tom. I don't know if it's a Jake or a big Tom, but it's... There's another one coming from the right. Okay, 2 of them.
there were a pair of nice toms working their way out into the field. All I needed to do now was get my bow around, then of course get him to come close enough, get drawed and take a shot and hit him. Other than that, this was going to be easy. Just as the first 2 toms got out into the field, I could see back in the trees there was a bunch more coming along behind them. There were 8, maybe 10 birds all working their way out, all staring at our decoys, and they were all toms. This looked like a bachelor group of 2-year-olds. Certainly the perfect bird for what I intended to do, which was eat one. Now all we needed was for one of them, hopefully not all of them, to work their way over to the decoys, get close enough to give me a reasonable shot.
That one's acting like he's wanting to come our way. Yeah, it is. He's got an eyeball on us.
I used our own private sign language to motion to Dave which bird I intended to shoot if they came in. The first 2 birds had actually started working the other way, but the balance of the group was still interested, still coming.
They're coming. If he comes over here, we will shoot him. Okay.
Everything was going exactly the way we had hoped. That is, until the lead tom pulled up short, stood there staring and staring. Something was bothering these birds. Maybe it was my decoy. Maybe they heard me whisper, saw me move. You never know. When you're hunting with archery gear, any little thing can blow up a hunt. If this had been a shotgun hunt, it had already been over. But I still needed these birds to come another 20 yards or so to have a reasonable archery shot. I sat there, motionless, holding my breath. And then the toms started to leave. A whole flock of toms was on the line, but I was having more than a little trouble reeling them in. They didn't seem much more interested in my decoys and calls than the deer had earlier. I had to do something. They were just going to wander off, so I decided I'm going to lean on the call a little harder. It'll either get them excited and they'll come in, or, yeah, run them off.
Coming our way. Yeah, we do. Come on, it's all good.
The first couple of birds continued to move off, but one of the toms in the middle of the flock must have thought I sounded pretty good, 'cause he turned and started coming right straight in. He came about halfway, then started picking. All I could do was sit and wait and watch. Every step brought him a little bit closer, but he was still out a little too far for me to be comfortable, and besides, he was still coming. There's no reason in the world to shoot at anything with a bow that's coming at you, 'cause, yeah, it's always getting closer. He'd covered most of the distance. He was within 30 yards or so, and then he seemed to lose his nerve. I sat there holding my breath, and then I noticed the rest of the gang was coming. The whole flock was coming up the field. Now all I really needed was for one of them, I didn't care which one, to break off and get a little bit closer. I still had hopes they'd come in a little bit closer, but I got my release on my string anyway. I truly believe that fortune goes to the prepared, and if this was all the closer they came, I was more than comfortable taking a shot. All I really wanted now was for one to separate himself. And then, when one finally did, he stopped right behind the rail, right behind the strap of our blind. Dave couldn't see him, so I couldn't shoot. And he just stood there for a few seconds while the rest of the group started moving off. And then finally, he took a step to the side.
I got him. About 25.
Nailed him. That one ain't going nowhere, but thank you. That was awesome. All them birds come in like that.
Way to go.
They even come back, picked on him a little bit. That's the way you hope, you get those bachelor groups. It's almost like bucks in the fall. In the early part of the fall, right after the season starts, the toms are all in bachelor groups. And when they first come out, I thought, they're just not coming. They looked at that decoy setup. That's proof decoys do work in the fall. Calling does work in the fall. It doesn't always work, but you know what? It doesn't always work in the springtime. We're going to go tag our bird. We are so blessed. Thank you, Lord. The Randalls, E-Tux, and E-Tal are definitely having thunder chicken for Thanksgiving dinner one more time. That's absolutely awesome. That old bird, yeah, he's a go. Ooh, right thump through him. That's how you shut off a turkey. Tag on our bird. You can read it. That's wild turkey hunting right there. Let's put this over here. We're going to put a little something on him. Just ain't nobody else out here, but it don't hurt. There, friends. There. That's what's for supper right there. Let me get that over here. That is a big old good one. Not a monster, Tom. That's not what we look for in the fall. This is exactly what we're after. This is a 2-year-old. Just enough meat to make sure that the Randall family will have a little taste of wild turkey again this Thanksgiving. Friends, we do have so much to be thankful for, not the least of which is you. Without you, there would be no journal, and I certainly want to thank each and every one of you from all of us. We truly hope your Thanksgiving is just as blessed and as fortunate. There's certainly challenges. If you watch the show, you know we have them just like you do. But the bottom line, we try. And if you go out and you try, this fall turkey hunt's a perfect example. This is an opportunity from right here in the great state of Michigan that is undersubscribed. There's a lot of guys and gals can't make up their mind. Should I go out and chase turkeys or should I maybe deer hunt? Well, the truth is I'd suggest you do both. You're going to enjoy yourself. You can call birds just like in the springtime. You saw that. You can use decoys. They don't always come, but you know what? They don't always come in the springtime either. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge worth taking up, and it is enjoyable. When you can finally fool them, when you get them to come in like you saw to the decoys and you get your shot, it is worth all the effort. It's like any other kind of hunting. And the best part is you're not going to run into a whole bunch of other people out there in the field doing it. Hey, I hope we do see some of you trying it, though, and if you're looking for a little extra challenge, take the old stick pusher out and try to get you a thunder chicken for Thanksgiving. I hope you do. I hope you're just as successful, and I truly hope that y'all have as much to be thankful for as we do. I'm going to go out. I'm going to cut this bird up. I'm going to put him in the freezer because it's not quite Thanksgiving yet. But I promise you, come that day, we'll have many prayers of thanks and a little thunder chicken on our table, and I truly hope you do too. Buddy, you want to go to supper? We're going to put a little orange bag on there just in case. Yeah, I'm getting old. It is. A great day. Thank you, Lord. That, friends, is how you keep a tradition alive. All it really takes is a little opportunity and a whole lot of want to. And that's exactly what I put together to get that turkey hunt done. I truly hope that each of you understands hunting is far more than just a pastime. It's more than a weekend thing. The truth of the matter, every meal you deliver firsthand is not only some of the best, highest quality meat your family will ever enjoy. You talk about free range, this is the only real free range food, and I'm telling you, every time you put your hands on your food, you're doing the right thing, and you're celebrating what put the first Thanksgiving together. You know, the harvest season is upon us, and we truly hope that you and yours go out and are safe and successful. We truly hope you share some of your bounty with your family and friends, and enlighten them as to the importance and the blessing that is hunting and fishing. And I don't care if it's a fall fishing trip, a bow, a gun. It doesn't matter to us whether it's deer or turkeys or pheasants or squirrels, whatever's on special in the outdoor grocery store. I hope you're out there shopping for it. And if we run into you doing it, well, you know we're going to stop and share a cup and a fire. And if we don't see you out there, friends, then rest assured I'll be right here. So next week we can share another adventure from my Wilderness Journal.